When we were traveling through Dumaguete a couple years ago, a guard at the bank asked us if we wanted to look at some land that was for sale. Oh, sure, why not? He took us to a place almost of Valencia, Becong. It turns off the side there into a beautiful piece of land, nicer than we expected to be. That little blue line is the main water main along the area, so there's plenty of fresh water there, and there's power there. And I liked that it was gently sloped enough so you wouldn't have water sitting and being stagnant, but it didn't have any steep places that would attract a lot of water. And it was actually a big piece of land, well over an acre. And we looked at it, it wasn't, and we just saw it home there, like we'd be happy there. So we decided, okay, we'll go for it. Well, it was owned by a group of people, and somewhere they decided, well, the price that they originally quoted us, they don't want to settle for that. They want a higher price. And right away, that did not agree that well with me, because with the higher price, we wouldn't have any money left over to build a house or a home there. So the man showed us a few other pieces of property, some nearby and some further away. And for some reason or another, I just wouldn't feel comfortable in either of those. It's not like I would be willing to go way out and to buy something that just didn't really turn me on, didn't really excite me about living there. And so then we met another woman who was a realtor, but an unlicensed realtor, that showed us some other places. And we realized none of them were as nice as this property. Usually there was drainage problems where it would be the lowest place, and if it rained a lot, all the water would be on that property, or it would come down the hill on that property. But the prices were just really high. One place really far out of town, you'd have to buy an easement from the neighbor to get there, which, I wanted something that was more of a done deal. So, we looked at that property again and decided, okay, maybe it's worth getting. So then we talked to Gordon McKissock at negrosconstructioncompany.com, who works out of Dumaguete, and his wife's a licensed realtor, and talked with him about if we wanted to subdivide the place, because then we could subdivide, sell a few lots, have enough money to build a house, and even more left over if we did a lot. And I asked him, well, what really sells? He said, well, no one ever asks for that. They just usually build what they want to build and hope someone will buy it. But what usually sells is a small house and a small lot, because then people can afford it. So we were really considering that. And we also found out that of the numerous people on the title, one of them no one had seen for years. And could they really sell it that way? So we got a lawyer involved, and he looked through everything and thought, well, we could sell it and we could proceed that way. On Gordon's webpage, he shows some beautiful houses he's built and really nice designs. So that's one thing to consider. He said, well, you could be your own contractor, but there's a learning curve, and the first house might not be that well, but after a while you'd get more familiar with it. So there was a lot to consider. But one thing that could have stuck in my mind, I live in a rural part of California. There's this road that goes out where there's not too many people live. And she says she sells these same totally beautiful properties over and over again. That people live in the Bay Area, they want to retire to a beautiful place in the country. They see it and they totally fall in love with it, so they buy the property. Then they live there a while, and then they realize, well, they miss their friends. They're far away from other people. Where's the shopping? They're far from hospitals. And then they sell it, and then someone else comes along and falls in love and buys it. So realize anything like this has to be an investment. You need a foreigner to be able to buy it, because foreigners can't really buy land there. These beach scenes are the nearest beach. They're not like public beaches. There's usually resorts there, and you pay a certain fee to be there for the day. Some of it goes towards food you may want to buy there. But it does give you an idea. You could go down to the beach if you want to and spend the day there. But it's not like something you just go to, like a beach park in Hawaii that's just open for anybody. So we toyed with the idea for quite a while. We were very interested, but I know here where I live, it's very hard to subdivide property. Supposedly there it works very easy, but it was just a matter of, do I want to take all that on? This next place a friend of ours was looking at, it's about 3 hours bus ride south of Cebu City, and then up a long, bumpy one-lane road. You go through tons of plastic everywhere, because the local town dumps all their plastic and dump up there, and it sort of blows around. But this is more of a traditional Filipino home and country there. Yeah, the price would be very good. It's just not where I'm wanting to live at this point in my life. Although it certainly has its charms. It's a beautiful place in the country, but I like to be closer to things. The next subdivision is near Balamban on the other side of the hill from Cebu City on the island of Cebu, and it's big land divided into a lot of 100 square meter lots. So if you wanted much space and you didn't want your house filling up the whole lot, you need to get more than one lot. And usually the house fills it up and the septic tank's there, but there's no leach field. And if you have noisy neighbors, you're going to hear a lot from them. This land is a little bit north of Balamban off the side road, not on the main road. It's an interesting piece of property. Partially it was the person that told us about it was very reputable, and she inherited this, so she didn't really know the property well. The next door neighbor showed us around and showed us where all the markings were. There was a little bit of where he was staying was on this property, but overall it looked workable. The ground wasn't too wet. It looks like there's some drainage there. The biggest problem that we found later after we left when she did some research is that he was actually living on the property, and the property that he showed us was not really the property that we thought we were looking at that was available. Because he was, I guess, just sort of homesteading or squatting there and living happily, and he didn't want to leave, so he was going to show us all this other property as the property. So if we got that, one, we would have got what we thought. Two, I wouldn't want to move into a neighborhood that there's a lot of people and kicking someone off their existing home. I don't want to be the foreigner that comes in and says, hey, you can't live here anymore, and you've had a place to live. And then when we first arrived there, there's a little sorry it's like a sample. A friend of ours is a contractor that did the roof of my mother-in-law's house. He built this for some foreigners, about $24,000 US for the house and all the fencing and everything. He did a nice job. He's a really nice guy. He knows what he's doing. Shows you what's available for around that price. This is the Villa Adela. It's a pension house. It's where we usually stay when we go to Balamban. It's a nice place. It's a safe place. We enjoy staying there. This field is another little subdivision divided into a lot of tiny little lots where some of the houses they can see out the front, but the windows would be on next door. And this is an open part that hasn't really sold because it hasn't really been all that popular. It's just on the hill as you're coming into town. The next plot is a little map of a spot. It's sort of narrow where it faces the street and wide when it gets below the street. And it's sort of steep going down into there, and it is below the road, so water coming down the street could all be coming down your driveway, which is not the thing you'd want to have happen. It's not too far from the old shopping center there, and this is looking down the hill. As you see it, then it levels off to a nice place. It's just a matter of getting in and out and how much is usable because of that factor. I mean, part of my concern was that it was asking a lot more than what they'd paid for it. It didn't seem to me to be that far ahead that long ago, and maybe things are appreciating, but maybe it might be hard to sell at a reasonable price if somewhere you decided that's not where you want to be. It's just one of those things. So a lot of the matter is this a place that I really want to live, I feel comfortable at, I really want to call home, even though you don't plan on selling it. It should be an option. It should be a reasonable investment that you could get your money out. And if it's priced pretty high, it's probably going to take a foreigner to come along and buy it, and foreigners aren't allowed to own land, so they'll be the partner of that. And sure, sometimes people do a 25 or 50-year lease, but it's probably harder to sell that than a clear title to a place. I mean, this is hopefully your home, and you'll be happy there. And we've looked at a lot of other places. One was the next rice paddy, so there's water sitting all over, even in a dry period. That didn't seem like a good idea. But hopefully you got something out of this. If you did, please put the thumbs up, the like button, and even more important is please hit the subscribe button. I wanted to do land now because I want to get more about condominiums and place in the city, but I thought at least doing some land and stuff like this would be a good beginning. It's just things to think about before you make a move that's hard to undo.